My birth was attended by 15 doctors. Normal deliveries need 1. The manila envelope felt heavier than it should have as I stared at the medical record spread across my kitchen table. 28 years of questions, and the answer was right there in black and white. Patient presented with acute heavy metal toxicity. Fetal distress severe. Emergency delivery protocol initiated, 15 specialists required. 15 doctors for my birth. Mom always told me it was because I was special, that I came into this world fighting. She never mentioned the part about someone trying to kill us both. The toxicology report from St. Mary's Hospital, dated March 15, 1995, showed dangerous levels of arsenic and mercury in my mother's bloodstream during delivery. Someone had been poisoning her systematically throughout her pregnancy. The handwritten notes in Dr. Patricia Hernandez's careful script painted a horrifying picture. Patient reports severe nausea beyond normal morning sickness, beginning week 12. Hair loss, cognitive impairment, seizures at week 28. Fetal development severely compromised. I picked up the second document with shaking hands, a police report filed 3 days after my birth that I'd never known existed. Victim, Sarah Chin, age 24. Suspect, Marcus William Donnelly, age 26, former boyfriend. Case closed due to insufficient evidence and victim's refusal to press charges. Marcus Donnelly. The name that made my mother's face go pale whenever it came up in conversation. The reason we moved across the state when I was 2. The man she described in whispers to my grandmother as dangerous, but never explained why. Now I knew why I'd spent my childhood in and out of hospitals. Why I couldn't keep up with other kids in school, why my hands trembled when I tried to write, why my kidneys failed when I was 16. Why Mom developed early onset dementia at 42 and died before my 25th birthday, her body ravaged by the same heavy metals that had nearly killed me in the womb. Marcus had gotten away with it. Not just attempted murder, successful murder, considering what those toxins did to Mom's brain and organs over the years. He'd stolen her life in slow motion and crippled mine before it even began. The third envelope contained something that made my blood run cold and hot simultaneously, current information on Marcus William Donnelly, age 54. Successful real estate developer. Married to Jennifer Donnelly for 18 years. 2 children, Emma, 17, and Michael, 14. Pillar of the community in Westfield, serving on the school board and coaching Little League. His LinkedIn photo showed a man with graying temples and kind eyes, the kind of father who probably helped with homework and attended every soccer game. The kind of man who'd systematically poisoned a pregnant woman and then built a perfect life on top of her grave. But here's what Marcus didn't know, Dr. Hernandez had kept samples. Hospital policy in cases of suspected poisoning. Those samples had been sitting in cold storage for 28 years, waiting for DNA technology to advance enough to prove what everyone suspected but couldn't confirm. The genetic markers were unmistakable. The arsenic traces matched a specific compound used in commercial pest control, the same compound found in the garage of the house Marcus had shared with my mother. The same compound that was now linked definitively to his DNA through skin cells found on the container. I had him. Emma Donnelly's wedding was scheduled for June 23 at the Riverside Country Club. According to her Facebook page, which she carelessly left public, it was going to be the wedding of the century, with 200 guests, including the mayor, 3 city councilmen, and Marcus's entire professional network. Perfect. The surveillance photos I'd taken outside Marcus's office building lay scattered next to the medical records. 3 weeks of watching his routine had revealed everything I needed to know about his perfect little life. Every Tuesday at 7:30 a.m., he grabbed coffee from Sunrise Cafe on Elm Street. Thursdays meant lunch at Romano's with his wife Jennifer. Saturdays were reserved for Emma's wedding planning appointments. But it was the manila folder marked personal that I'd found in his unlocked car last Tuesday that changed everything. Inside were letters. 23 of them, all addressed to my mother, all returned unopened. The postmark started 6 months after my birth and continued for nearly 2 years. Marcus had been trying to contact her, and she'd refused every attempt. Sarah. Asterisk, I know what you think happened, but you're wrong. The tests were contaminated. I would never hurt you or the baby. Please let me explain. Please let me be a father to him, asterisk. Marcus. Sarah. Asterisk, I hired a private investigator. There was construction next to your apartment building. Lead pipes, asbestos removal. That's what poisoned you. Not me. I loved you. I wanted to marry you, asterisk. Marcus. Sarah. Asterisk, my lawyer says I can fight for custody. I don't want to, but I need you to understand the truth. I'm getting married next month to Jennifer Walsh. I could provide a stable home for our son. Think about what's best for him, asterisk. Marcus. Our son. I stared at those 2 words until they blurred. All this time, I'd assumed Marcus was just Mom's abusive ex-boyfriend who tried to kill her unborn child out of spite or rage. I never considered that the unborn child might be his. The DNA evidence I'd been so proud of, the genetic markers that proved his connection to the arsenic container, they weren't proof of guilt. They were proof of paternity. My hands shook as I pulled up the 23andMe account I'd created 3 months ago, back when I thought I was just looking for extended family. The partial matches I'd dismissed as statistical noise suddenly made sense. Donnelly Mike 14, 25% DNA match. Emma D _ 2005, 23% DNA match. Michael and Emma weren't just the children of my mother's would-be killer. They were my half-siblings. The wedding invitation I'd obtained through Emma's chatty college roommate felt different in my hands now. This wasn't just about crashing the celebration of the man who destroyed my family. This was about destroying my own siblings' lives, ruining their relationship with the only father they'd ever known. But the medical evidence didn't lie. Someone had poisoned my mother with commercial-grade arsenic for months. If not Marcus, then who? Who else had access to their shared garage, their shared home, their shared life? I pulled up the police report again, reading more carefully this time. Detective Raymond Hayes had interviewed 3 people, Marcus, my mother, and Jennifer Walsh, Marcus's co-worker who'd become his wife just 8 months after my birth. Jennifer, who worked in property management for commercial buildings. Jennifer, who would have had access to industrial pest control supplies. Jennifer, who'd been having an affair with my mother's boyfriend and needed the pregnant ex-girlfriend out of the picture. The pieces clicked into place like a jigsaw puzzle I'd been trying to solve my entire life. Marcus wasn't the killer, he was another victim. Jennifer had poisoned my mother, let Marcus take the blame, and then swooped in to comfort him through his false accusations. She played the supportive girlfriend who believed in his innocence because she knew exactly how guilty she was. For 28 years, Marcus had lived with the weight of being suspected of attempted murder. He'd lost his son, been forced to start over, probably struggled with the knowledge that somewhere out there was a child who might be his but whom he could never claim without looking even more guilty. And Jennifer had built her perfect family on that foundation of lies and poison. Emma's wedding was going to be very interesting indeed. I spent the next 4 days digging deeper into Jennifer Walsh's background, and what I found made my stomach turn. Before her marriage to Marcus, she'd worked for Westfield Property Management for 6 years, specializing in commercial pest control contracts. Her employment records showed she'd been specifically trained in handling arsenic-based compounds for termite elimination. More damning was her medical history. I'd managed to obtain it through a contact at St. Mary's, the same Dr. Hernandez, now retired, who remembered my mother's case vividly. Jennifer had been treated for chronic headaches and nausea in late 1994 and early 1995. The exact symptoms someone might experience from handling arsenic regularly without proper protection. But the smoking gun came from an unexpected source, Marcus himself. I'd been following him for 2 weeks now, learning his patterns, watching his interactions with his family. Thursday evening, November 14th, I was parked outside Romano's restaurant when I saw him through the window having what looked like an intense conversation with Jennifer. Even from across the street, I could see her gesturing frantically while he sat perfectly still, staring at his untouched plate. When they left separately, Jennifer storming to her Mercedes while Marcus walked slowly to his Honda, I made a decision that would change everything. I followed him. Marcus drove to Riverside Park and sat on a bench overlooking the water. For 20 minutes, he just stared at the lake. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Detective Hayes. This is Marcus Donnelly. Yes, from the Sarah Chin case in 1995. I know it's been closed for decades, but I need to tell you something. I think I know who really poisoned her. My heart hammered so hard I was sure he could hear it from 50 feet away. It was Jennifer. My wife Jennifer. I found something in our attic yesterday, and I can't live with this anymore. His voice cracked. She kept a journal. From 1994. It's all in there, how she was in love with me, how she needed Sarah gone, how she put the arsenic in Sarah's prenatal vitamins over the course of 4 months. The conversation continued for another 10 minutes. Marcus arranged to meet Detective Hayes the next morning at 9 a.m. to turn over the journal and a small vial that Jennifer had apparently kept as some kind of twisted trophy. I sat in my car, mind reeling. Marcus was going to confess his wife's crime. Jennifer's perfect life was about to crumble. Justice for my mother was finally within reach. But then I thought about Emma and Michael. Emma, who'd posted excited updates about her dress fittings and honeymoon plans. Michael, who'd shared photos from his soccer championship last week with both parents beaming in the background. 2 kids who were about to learn their mother was a murderer and their entire lives had been built on a foundation of lies and poison. My half-siblings, who'd never even known I existed. The revenge I planned so meticulously was about to happen without me lifting a finger. Marcus would expose Jennifer, the police would reopen the case, and the Donnelly family would implode spectacularly. Emma's June wedding would be cancelled. Michael would become the son of a convicted attempted murderer. Marcus would lose everything for the second time in his life. I could just walk away and let justice take its natural course. But as I watched Marcus sit alone by that lake, shoulders shaking with what looked like 28 years of suppressed grief, I realized I didn't want justice anymore. I wanted my family back. I drove home with my mind racing, but by the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew what I had to do. Marcus would meet with Detective Hayes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. That gave me exactly 14 hours to decide whether I wanted to be a stranger watching my biological father destroy his life from the sidelines, or a son who finally introduced himself. The decision should have been simple. This man had spent 28 years building a life with a woman who'd poisoned my mother and stolen my childhood. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw him sitting alone by that lake, carrying the weight of a crime he didn't commit. At 11:47 p.m., I found myself parked outside 1247 Maple Street, the address I'd memorized weeks ago when Marcus was just a target for revenge. Now it was my father's house. The home where my half-siblings had grown up, where Jennifer Walsh had played loving mother while hiding the truth about what she'd done to ensure that role was hers. The house was dark except for a single light in what I assumed was the master bedroom. Through the upstairs window, I could see 2 silhouettes, Marcus and Jennifer, probably having the conversation that would end their 18-year marriage. I wondered if she knew he'd found her journal. If she was still trying to lie her way out of it, or if she'd finally confessed to what she'd done. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Hernandez, whose number I'd gotten when she'd helped me access Jennifer's medical records. Asterisk, DNA results came back. 99.7% probability that Marcus Donnelly is your biological father. I'm sorry this is how you had to find out, David. Asterisk. David. She'd used my name like I was still the struggling child she tried to save 28 years ago. In a way, I guess I was. At 12:33 a.m., the front door opened and Jennifer walked out carrying a small suitcase. Even in the dim streetlight, I could see she'd been crying. She loaded the suitcase into her Mercedes and drove away without looking back. Whatever conversation they'd had upstairs, it was over. Marcus appeared in the doorway 5 minutes later, still fully dressed. He walked to the end of his driveway and just stood there, staring up at the November sky. This was my chance, maybe my only chance, to approach him before his world completely fell apart. I got out of my car and walked across the street, my footsteps echoing in the quiet neighborhood. When I was about 10 feet away, I cleared my throat. Marcus Donnelly. He turned, and for the first time in my life, I was looking into the eyes of my biological father. The resemblance was unmistakable. We had the same nose, the same stubborn jawline, even the same way of tilting our heads when confused. Do I know you? He asked, but there was something in his expression that suggested he might already suspect the answer. My name is David Chin, I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. Sarah Chen was my mother. The color drained from his face. He took a step backward, then seemed to catch himself. Sarah's son, he whispered. You're. God, you look just like her around the eyes. I look like you too, I said quietly. The DNA test confirmed it this morning. You're my father, Marcus. For a long moment, we just stood there in the middle of his driveway, two strangers connected by genetics and tragedy, staring at each other under the streetlights. Finally, Marcus spoke. I tried to find you after she moved away. Hired 3 different private investigators over the years, but Sarah had changed both your names and kept moving. I never. He stopped, shaking his head. How did you find me? Hospital records, I said. I've known about the poisoning for 3 weeks. Until tonight, I thought you were the one who did it. His face crumpled. I would never have hurt her. I loved Sarah. I wanted to marry her, raise you together. When the police said someone had been poisoning her, I couldn't understand how anyone could. He trailed off, and I saw the exact moment he realized I knew the truth. You found Jennifer's journal, I said. Marcus nodded, looking older than his 54 years. Hidden in a box in our attic. 28 years of marriage to the woman who tried to kill the mother of my child. The silence stretched between us until Marcus finally spoke again. I'm meeting Detective Hayes at 9 a.m. to turn over everything. The journal, the vial she kept, all of it. His voice was hollow. Emma and Michael don't know yet. I wanted one more night before their lives got destroyed. They're going to find out I exist too, I said. Once the police reopen the case, the DNA evidence will surface. Your kids are going to learn they have a half-brother the same day they learn their mother is a would-be murderer. Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. Jesus Christ. Emma's wedding is in 7 months. Michael just made varsity soccer. They're good kids, David. They don't deserve this. Neither did I said, surprised by the bitterness in my own voice. I spent my entire childhood thinking I was broken. Kidney failure at 16. Mom dying at 47 because the arsenic Jennifer fed her slowly destroyed her organs. Your wife didn't just try to kill us, she succeeded with my mother and crippled me for life. I know, Marcus whispered. God help me, I know. If I'd figured it out sooner, if I'd looked harder at the evidence instead of just accepting that someone wanted to frame me. He ran his hands through his graying hair. I found something else in that box. Letters from Sarah that I never received. Jennifer intercepted them. My stomach clenched. What letters? From 1997 to 1999. Sarah was sick, really sick, and struggling financially with your medical bills. She was asking for help. Not money for herself, just, she wanted me to know you existed. To maybe be part of your life. His voice broke. Jennifer hid them all. Let me believe Sarah hated me while she was begging me to help raise our son. The weight of lost years hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been in and out of hospitals, while Mom had been working 3 jobs to pay for my treatments, while we'd struggled alone in a series of cramped apartments, my father had been 20 miles away, never knowing we needed him. There's more, Marcus continued, pulling a folded envelope from his jacket pocket. Jennifer kept records. Detailed ones. She documented every time she dosed Sarah's prenatal vitamins, tracked the symptoms, even calculated how much arsenic would cause developmental damage without killing you outright. I stared at the envelope like it might bite me. She wanted me born disabled. She wanted you born dependent. Sick enough that Sarah couldn't work, couldn't take care of you properly. Jennifer thought if you were struggling, that Sarah would eventually have to contact me for help, and then Jennifer could be the supportive girlfriend who encouraged me to do the right thing by taking custody. And then what? She was going to raise the child she'd poisoned. Marcus's laugh was bitter. According to her journal, she planned to be the perfect stepmother. Take credit for helping a disabled child thrive. She saw it as her path to becoming indispensable to me. The calculating coldness of it made my skin crawl. Jennifer hadn't just tried to eliminate a romantic rival, she'd orchestrated an elaborate scheme to position herself as a savior while creating the very crisis she'd pretend to solve. When Sarah moved away instead, Marcus continued, Jennifer convinced me it proved Sarah was unstable. Said a good mother wouldn't keep a sick child from his father unless she had something to hide. I actually started believing maybe Sarah had poisoned herself during some kind of breakdown. So Jennifer got what she wanted anyway. You, without the complications. Yeah. And then she gave me 2 more children to replace the one she'd helped steal from me. Marcus looked up at his dark house. Emma has your mother's laugh. Did you know that? I always wondered why it sounded so familiar. A car door slammed somewhere down the street, reminding us we were having this conversation in the middle of his driveway at 1 a.m. But neither of us moved. 28 years of questions were finally getting answers, and I wasn't ready to walk away. Detective Hayes reopens the case tomorrow, I said. Jennifer gets arrested. This all becomes public record. Your kids' friends, their teachers, everyone in Westfield will know their mother tried to murder a pregnant woman. Marcus nodded slowly. Emma will probably have to postpone the wedding. Michael will get pulled out of school. I'll lose my business. Who wants to buy real estate from someone whose wife is an attempted murderer? He paused. But you'll finally get justice for Sarah. Justice. The word I'd been chasing for 3 weeks now felt strangely empty. What if there was another way? I heard myself ask. Marcus looked at me with something that might have been hope. What kind of other way? Jennifer's already gone, I said, gesturing toward the empty driveway where her Mercedes had been parked. She knows you found the journal. She's probably halfway to another state by now. She won't run far. Her whole life is here, her job at Morrison and Associates, her book club, her position on the hospital board. Jennifer's spent 18 years building herself into Westfield's perfect citizen. She won't just abandon that. Then we make her abandon it voluntarily. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken of Jennifer's journal pages. I photographed everything before you got home. The detailed dosing schedules, the symptom tracking, her calculations for maximum damage without death. All in her handwriting. Marcus stared at the screen, his face pale. How did you get into my house? Your spare key under the fake rock isn't exactly Fort Knox security. I swiped to the next photo. Look at this entry from February 12, 1995. S. Complained of severe cramping today. Reduced arsenic to 0.3 milligrams to avoid premature labor. Need baby born alive for maximum emotional impact on M. She was treating your mother's pregnancy like a chemistry experiment, Marcus whispered. And documenting it like a proud scientist. Jennifer kept records because she never thought she'd get caught. This journal isn't just evidence, it's a confession written in real time over 4 months of systematic poisoning. A light came on in the house next door. We'd been talking too long in one place. Marcus noticed too and gestured toward his front porch. Come inside, he said. If we're going to plan Jennifer's downfall, we should probably do it somewhere the neighbors can't overhear. The house felt surreal, family photos everywhere showing Jennifer smiling with Emma and Michael, vacation pictures from Disney World and Yellowstone, the whole tableau of American family happiness built on attempted murder. I found myself studying Emma's graduation photo on the mantel, looking for resemblances between us. She has Mom's smile, I said without thinking. Marcus followed my gaze. Emma's always been the optimistic one. Like Sarah was, before. He didn't finish the sentence. Michael's more serious. Gets straight A's, wants to study environmental science in college. Ironically, he's passionate about preventing industrial contamination. He's going to learn his mother committed industrial contamination against a pregnant woman. Not if we handle this right. Marcus sat down heavily on his leather couch. You said there might be another way. What did you mean? I'd been forming the plan as we talked, but saying it out loud felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Jennifer ran tonight because she knows you found evidence. She's scared, probably panicking, definitely not thinking clearly. People in that state make bad decisions. Go on. What if Jennifer Walsh simply disappeared from Westfield? Resigned from her job, sold her share of the house, moved somewhere far away where she could start over under a new identity. A voluntary exile instead of a criminal trial. Marcus frowned. She'd never agree to that. Jennifer's too proud, too invested in her reputation here. She would if the alternative was 25 years in federal prison for attempted murder across state lines. I pulled up the photos of her journal again. This isn't just poisoning, Marcus. Jennifer tracked Mom's movements between 3 different states during the pregnancy. When Mom stayed with her sister in Ohio for 2 weeks, Jennifer drove there and continued dosing her vitamins. Federal prosecutors would have a field day with this. You've researched the legal implications. Extensively. Jennifer's looking at attempted murder, reckless endangerment of a child, interstate crimes involving poison, fraud for filing false insurance claims about Mom's medical expenses. With proper legal representation, she might plead down to 15 years. Without it, she's looking at life. Marcus was quiet for several minutes, staring at the family photos surrounding us. And if she just left? Emma gets married on schedule. Michael finishes high school with his friends. Your business survives. Jennifer disappears quietly, and the 3 of you get to process this privately instead of having it splashed across every newspaper in the state. What about justice for Sarah? The question hit harder than I'd expected. I thought about Mom working double shifts at the diner while I was hospitalized for kidney problems Jennifer had caused. About the learning disabilities that made school a constant struggle. About watching Mom's mind deteriorate from early onset dementia triggered by heavy metal poisoning. Mom's dead, I said finally. Justice won't bring her back. But your kids are alive, and they don't deserve to have their lives destroyed for something they had nothing to do with. You're protecting Emma and Michael. There was wonder in Marcus's voice. You've never even met them, but you're trying to shield them from this. They're my half-siblings. And unlike Jennifer, I don't destroy families for personal gain. Marcus pulled out his phone and stared at Detective Hayes' contact information. If I don't make that call tomorrow morning, then Jennifer has 12 hours to realize running is her best option. I'm betting she's already looked up federal sentencing guidelines for attempted murder. Smart woman like her, she's probably calculated her odds. And if she doesn't run, then we go to Plan B, police, prosecutors, public trial, everything. But we give her the chance to spare Emma and Michael the worst of it first. At 2:17 a.m., Marcus made his decision. Instead of calling Detective Hayes, he called his wife. The phone rang 4 times before Jennifer answered. Even through the speaker, I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. Marcus, it's after 2 in the morning. What? I know about David, he said quietly, cutting her off. Sarah's son. Our son. He's sitting right here with me. The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Finally, Jennifer's voice came back, smaller and more fragile than I'd expected. How did he find you? Hospital records. DNA tests. 28 years of medical evidence that you tried to cover up. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. I read your journal, Jen. All of it. The dosing schedules, the symptom tracking, your calculations for maximum emotional impact. A sharp intake of breath. Marcus, you don't understand. I can explain. You poisoned a pregnant woman for 4 months. You documented it like a science experiment. You kept a vial of the arsenic as some kind of trophy. His voice remained eerily calm. What exactly is there to explain? I loved you. The words came out in a rush. Sarah was going to ruin your life, trap you with a baby you weren't ready for. I was trying to protect you, to give us a chance. By murdering my child. I never meant for the baby to die. I researched the dosages carefully, I monitored her symptoms. I wanted her to need help. To need you. And then you'd see that I was better for you, that I could take care of both of you. I watched Marcus's face cycle through disgust, horror, and something that might have been grief for the woman he'd thought he married. You wanted to poison my son into disability so you could play savior. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. Children recover from developmental delays. I was going to get him the best therapists, the best schools. He would have had a better life with us than he ever had with Sarah. The casual way she discussed my poisoning, like it had been a reasonable business decision, made my hands shake. But Marcus kept his voice level. Sarah moved away instead. So you convinced me she was unstable. That she was keeping David from me out of spite. Because she was. A good mother would have contacted you when the medical bills got overwhelming, but she was too proud, too stubborn. I saved you from years of guilt and obligation to a woman who clearly didn't want your help. You intercepted her letters. Sarah did try to contact me, and you hid them. Another silence. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice had changed, harder, more calculating. Are you recording this conversation? Marcus glanced at me. I shook my head. We hadn't thought that far ahead. No, he said. Then it's your word against mine. A bitter ex-husband trying to frame his wife during an ugly divorce. You think Detective Hayes will reopen a closed case based on a journal that could have been written by anyone? David's DNA proves paternity, not attempted murder. We have photos of every page. Your handwriting, your personal details about Sarah that only you would know, medical terminology from your pest control training. It's all there, Jen. Circumstantial. My lawyer will tear it apart. But uncertainty had crept into her voice. Marcus looked at me and made a decision. You have 12 hours. What? 12 hours before I call Detective Hayes. If you're still in Westfield tomorrow afternoon, this becomes a criminal investigation. Federal charges, public trial, everything. Emma and Michael will watch their mother get arrested on the 6 o'clock news. You're bluffing. You won't destroy your children's lives to get revenge on me. It won't be revenge, Jennifer. It'll be justice. And Emma and Michael will eventually understand that some secrets are too poisonous to keep hidden. He paused. But if you disappear quietly, resign from Morrison Associates, sell me your half of the house for $1, and relocate somewhere far from Massachusetts, then David and I never had this conversation. You want me to just vanish? Leave everything I've built here? You built it all on attempted murder. Consider this a generous settlement offer. The line went quiet except for Jennifer's breathing. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. And if I run, you'll let people think I just left. Had some kind of breakdown. We'll let them think whatever they want to think. Your secrets die with your departure. At 2:44 a.m., Jennifer Walsh hung up without another word. Marcus and I sat in his living room, surrounded by 18 years of fake family memories, waiting to see whether his wife would choose exile or destruction. By dawn, we'd have our answer. The motel receipt fell out of Jennifer's purse when I searched her Mercedes at 3:47 a.m. She'd left the car unlocked in the parking lot of Westfield Station, our small town's excuse for a train depot. The 6:15 a.m. express to Boston was still 4 hours away, but Jennifer Walsh was clearly planning her escape route. What she hadn't planned on was leaving evidence behind. Sunset Motor Lodge, room 127, I read aloud to Marcus as we sat in his kitchen, sharing coffee that neither of us could taste. Checked in at 11:23 p.m. last night. 3 hours before she called you. Marcus studied the receipt with the focused attention of someone trying to solve a puzzle. She was already running before I confronted her about the journal. Which means she knew you'd found it. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken in his attic. Look at this, the box where you found Jennifer's journal. See how the dust patterns are disturbed around the edges? Someone had opened it recently. Multiple times. She'd been checking on it, Marcus realized. Making sure her confession was still hidden. Or adding to it. I zoomed in on one particular journal entry, dated just 3 weeks ago, exactly when I'd started investigating the hospital records. November 2nd, 2023, received call from Dr. Hernandez today asking about patient files from 1995. Claims it's for research purposes, but timing feels suspicious. Need to review contingency plans. Marcus set down his coffee cup hard enough to rattle the saucer. She knew. Jennifer knew someone was looking into Sarah's case. She's been preparing for this moment for weeks. I flipped through the photos to show him more recent entries. November 8th, liquidated emergency account. $47,000 cash now secured in safety deposit box. November 12th, researched states without extradition treaties. Argentina looking promising but requires significant investment. Argentina? Marcus's face went pale. She's not planning to hide in the next state over. She's planning to disappear completely. The implications hit us both simultaneously. If Jennifer fled the country, Emma and Michael wouldn't just lose their mother, they'd spend the rest of their lives wondering if she was alive or dead. No closure, no answers, just an endless question mark where their family used to be. We have to stop her, I said, already reaching for my keys. Marcus grabbed my wrist. David, wait. Think about what you're saying. If we intercept Jennifer at that motel, if we force her to stay and face charges, then Emma and Michael definitely lose their mother to a public trial and prison sentence. But if she flees to South America, they lose her anyway. At least with a trial, they get answers. Do they? Or do they get trauma? Their mother's attempted murder case splashed across every newspaper, every website, every social media platform in Massachusetts. Emma's fiancé's family will see it. Michael's classmates will see it. They'll never escape being the children of the woman who tried to poison a pregnant woman. I stared at him, torn between wanting justice for my mother and protecting siblings I'd never met. So what are you suggesting? We just let her go. I'm suggesting we think about what Sarah would have wanted. Marcus's voice was quiet but steady. Your mother never pressed charges in 1995, even when she had the chance. She moved away instead, changed your name, started over somewhere Jennifer couldn't find you. Maybe Sarah understood something we don't about the cost of revenge. Before I could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, *, train delayed until 8:30 a.m. Need more time to consider your offer. We'll call at 7 a.m. sharp, *. She's stalling, I said. Or she's scared. Marcus showed me the message. Jennifer's entire life just imploded in one night. Her marriage is over, her secrets are exposed, and she's facing either exile or federal prison. People make desperate choices when they're cornered. What kind of desperate choices? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at his phone. The kind where everyone loses. At 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes before Jennifer's promised call, Marcus made a decision that changed everything. He drove to the Sunset Motor Lodge with me following in my car, and we knocked on the door of room 127. Jennifer answered on the third knock, looking like she'd aged a decade overnight. Her usually perfect hair hung limp around her shoulders, and her eyes were red-rimmed from crying or lack of sleep, maybe both. "You came," she said quietly, stepping aside to let us in. The motel room was spartanly clean except for a single suitcase on the bed and Jennifer's laptop open on the small desk. On the screen was a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires, departure date November 18th, today. "You're really going to run," I said. Jennifer looked at me for the first time since we'd arrived, and I saw her studying my face with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. "You have Sarah's eyes," she said finally. "But Marcus's stubborn chin. I always wondered what you'd look like grown up. You wondered about the child you tried to kill. I wondered about the child I tried to save." Her voice was steady, matter-of-fact. "Sarah was going to be a terrible mother, David. She was 24, broke, had no family support. You would have grown up in poverty, probably bounced between foster homes when she couldn't handle raising a disabled child alone. So you decided to disable me yourself. I decided to give you a father who could provide for you. A stable home, private schools, the best medical care money could buy." Jennifer closed the laptop with a sharp click. I miscalculated Sarah's pride. I assumed she'd reach out to Marcus for help eventually. Marcus stepped forward, his face hard. "You miscalculated everything, Jen. Sarah was stronger than you gave her credit for. She raised David on her own, kept him safe from you, built a life that didn't depend on money stolen from attempted murder. And how did that work out?" Jennifer's voice turned sharp. "Sarah died at 47 from organ failure. David spent his childhood in hospitals. Tell me how my way would have been worse." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away, but before I could respond, Jennifer's phone rang. The caller ID showed Emma, wedding emergency. Jennifer stared at her phone as Emma's ringtone filled the small motel room. After 4 rings, she declined the call, but it immediately started ringing again. "Answer it," Marcus said quietly. "She's your daughter." Jennifer's hands shook as she accepted the call and put it on speaker. Emma's voice came through, bright and excited despite the early hour. "Mom. Thank God you picked up. I know it's crazy early, but I couldn't sleep and I had the most amazing idea for the centerpieces. What if we used white roses with baby's breath, but added these tiny LED lights that..." Emma paused. "Mom. Are you okay? You sound weird." Jennifer closed her eyes. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. It's been a long night. Are you at home?" I tried calling the house phone first and Dad answered. He sounded strange too. Like he'd been crying or something. Emma's voice took on the worried tone of a daughter who knows something's wrong but can't identify what. "Did you guys have a fight?" Marcus and I exchanged glances. Emma had no idea her mother was sitting in a motel room at 7 a.m. with a one-way ticket to Argentina and 2 men who discovered her deepest secret. "Your father and I are working through some things," Jennifer said carefully. "Nothing for you to worry about, Emma. Tell me about the centerpieces." "No, Mom, something's definitely wrong. Michael heard Dad on the phone really late last night talking to someone about DNA tests and police reports. And when Michael asked about it this morning, Dad just said he needed to tell us something important later today." Emma's voice pitched higher with anxiety. "Mom, what's happening? Are you guys getting divorced?" The word divorced hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Jennifer looked at Marcus with something approaching desperation. "Emma," Marcus said, stepping closer to the phone. "It's Dad. Your mom and I are having some difficulties right now, but we're going to handle it as a family. Can you and Michael meet us at Romano's for lunch today? Around 1 o'clock. Dad? Why are you with Mom if she's not at home? Where are you guys?" I could practically hear Emma's mind racing, trying to piece together the fragments of information that didn't make sense. Her parents acting strange, late-night phone calls about DNA tests, now discovering they were together somewhere at dawn after apparently fighting. Jennifer looked at the laptop with her flight information, then at Marcus, then at me, the half-brother Emma didn't know existed. "We're at the Sunset Motor Lodge," she said quietly. "The motel by the train station." "Mom, what the hell is going on?" "Language, Emma," Jennifer said automatically, and despite everything, I almost smiled. Even in crisis, she was still being a mother. "Don't language me right now. You and Dad are at a motel at 7 in the morning after Michael heard something about police reports, and you're telling me not to worry?" Emma's voice cracked. "Are you having an affair? Is Dad having an affair? Are you both having affairs?" "Nobody's having an affair," Marcus said firmly. "Emma, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your mother and I discovered something important about our family. About your family. There are some things we never told you and Michael, and it's time you knew the truth." "What kind of truth?" Marcus looked at me, and I saw 28 years of regret in his eyes. "You have a half-brother, Emma. His name is David, and he's 28 years old. He's here with us right now." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long I thought Emma might have hung up. Finally, her voice came back, small and confused. "I have a brother." "Yes," Marcus said gently. "From before I met your mother. His mother was a woman named Sarah Chin." "Sarah Chin," Emma repeated slowly. Why haven't you ever mentioned him? Where has he been all my life?" Jennifer and Marcus exchanged a look that contained 18 years of lies and the crushing weight of truth that was about to destroy their daughter's world. "That," Jennifer said quietly, "is what we need to explain at Romano's." The lunch at Romano's never happened. At 8:23 a.m., 20 minutes after Emma learned she had a half-brother, Michael called his father in a panic. Jennifer's sister Claire had just arrived at the house asking why Jennifer had cleaned out her bank account and requesting emergency contact information for a family crisis. "Dad, Aunt Claire is freaking out," Michael's voice carried through the motel room speaker. She says Mom withdrew $47,000 yesterday and closed her savings account. She thinks Mom's having some kind of breakdown because of Emma's wedding stress. I watched Jennifer's face crumble as her carefully constructed exit strategy fell apart in real time. She'd forgotten that her sister had co-signing privileges on the emergency account, a safety measure they'd established years ago when Jennifer was handling the finances for their father's estate. Michael, where's your sister? Marcus asked, his voice tight with control. She left about 10 minutes ago. Said she was driving to the Sunset Motor Lodge to find you and Mom herself. Dad, what's going on? Why is everyone acting insane today? Through the thin motel room window, I could see a blue Honda Civic pulling into the parking lot, the same car I'd seen in Emma's Instagram photos from her college graduation. My half-sister was about to walk into the middle of a 28-year-old crime scene. She's here, I said quietly. Jennifer stood up abruptly, smoothing her wrinkled clothes in a futile attempt to look like the put-together mother Emma expected. I can't do this. I can't look at her and pretend everything's normal when she's about to learn I'm a... You're going to look at her and tell her the truth, Marcus interrupted. Both our kids deserve that much. The knock on the door came exactly 30 seconds later, 3 sharp raps that somehow conveyed Emma's determination and rising panic. Jennifer hesitated for a moment, then opened the door to reveal a young woman who looked remarkably like our mother had at the same age. Emma stepped into the room and immediately focused on me, studying my face with the analytical precision of someone solving a puzzle. You're David, she said. It wasn't a question. I'm David, I confirmed. She nodded once, then turned to her parents. Okay. I've spent the last 20 minutes thinking about this, and I need to know 3 things. First, why didn't you tell Michael and me we had a brother? Second, why are you meeting him at a motel instead of bringing him home? And third, why did you withdraw $47,000 in cash yesterday, Mom? The directness of her questions caught all 3 of us off guard. Emma wasn't the hysterical teenager we'd expected, she was a 22-year-old woman demanding answers from adults who'd clearly been lying to her. Jennifer sat down heavily on the motel bed. The money was insurance. In case I needed to leave quickly. Leave and go where? Argentina, I said when Jennifer couldn't seem to find words. Your mother has a flight booked for this afternoon. Emma's eyes widened, but her voice remained steady. Why would you need to flee to Argentina, Mom? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Jennifer looked at Marcus, then at me, then back at her daughter. Because 28 years ago, I did something terrible to David's mother. Something that hurt both of them badly. And yesterday, your father found evidence that proves I did it. What kind of terrible thing? Jennifer's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I poisoned her while she was pregnant with David. 4 months. I almost killed them both. Emma sat down abruptly in the motel room's single chair, her face cycling through disbelief, horror, and something that looked like recognition. The woman Dad used to mention sometimes. Sarah. She was your ex-girlfriend who moved away when David was little. She moved away because she was afraid of your mother, I said quietly. Because someone had been systematically poisoning her during her pregnancy, and she suspected it was Jennifer. But why? Emma's voice cracked for the first time. Why would you hurt a pregnant woman? Jennifer closed her eyes. Because I was in love with your father, and she was in the way. I thought if Sarah got sick enough, she'd need help raising David. I thought your father would do the right thing and take custody, and then I could be there to help him. To prove I'd be a good mother. So you poisoned her to make yourself look like a hero. Emma's voice rose with incredulous anger. You gave David disabilities so you could swoop in and save the day. I researched the dosages carefully. I never meant for the damage to be permanent. Emma stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. You researched how to poison a baby. You documented it like some kind of science experiment. She looked at me with something approaching horror. Oh my God. Your health problems, your learning disabilities, my mother did that to you. Your mother gave me kidney disease, developmental delays, and took away the first 2 years of my life with my father, I said evenly. She also killed my mother slowly over 20 years through heavy metal poisoning that eventually caused organ failure. Emma turned to stare at Jennifer with the expression of someone seeing a stranger wearing their mother's face. You murdered David's mother. I never meant. You murdered her. Emma's composure finally cracked, tears streaming down her face. You poisoned a pregnant woman, disabled her baby, stole 28 years of his relationship with Dad, and then you married Dad and had us like nothing happened. The truth of it, laid out in Emma's stark summary, seemed to physically stagger Jennifer. She reached toward her daughter, but Emma stepped back like Jennifer might poison her too. Emma, please. Please what? Please understand why you committed attempted murder. Please forgive you for building our entire family on a lie. Emma wiped her eyes and looked at Marcus. Did you know? I suspected something was wrong back then, but I couldn't prove it. Yesterday I found your mother's journal documenting everything she did. Marcus's voice was hollow. I've spent 18 years married to someone I never really knew. Emma looked around the motel room, at Jennifer's suitcase, at the laptop with flight information, at the 3 adults whose secrets had just blown apart her understanding of her own life. So what happens now? Mom flies to Argentina and we pretend she died in an accident. Dad calls the police and we watch her get arrested for attempted murder. I cancel my wedding because my mother is a would-be killer. The wedding. In all the chaos of confessions and confrontations, I'd forgotten that Emma was supposed to be getting married in 7 months to someone who had no idea he was marrying into a family built on attempted infanticide. Your wedding doesn't have to change, I said quietly. This doesn't have to destroy your life, Emma. She looked at me with eyes that were definitely our mother's, the same shape, the same way of focusing intently when thinking through a problem. How can it not change everything? My mother tried to murder my brother before I was even born. Every birthday party, every Christmas morning, every family vacation, it was all fake. She was hugging Michael and me with the same hands she used to poison you. The brutal honesty of it silenced the room. Emma was processing 22 years of memories through the lens of newfound knowledge, and every single moment was being recontextualized by Jennifer's crime. Your mother loves you and Michael, I said. Whatever else she did, whatever else she is, that part was real. Emma laughed bitterly. How would you know? She stole your entire childhood. Because, I said, studying Jennifer's face as she watched her daughter's world collapse, I can see how much losing you is destroying her. People don't fake that kind of pain. Jennifer looked at me with something approaching gratitude mixed with surprise. Even after learning the full scope of what she'd done to my family, I was defending her relationship with her children. The question, I continued, is what we do next. Do we destroy 2 more innocent people to get justice for crimes committed before they were born? Or do we find another way? Emma wiped her eyes and looked directly at me. What do you want, David? Not what's best for Michael and me, not what protects Dad's reputation, not what lets Mom escape consequences. What do you want? It was the question I'd been avoiding since finding those hospital records 3 weeks ago. What did I want? Justice for my mother. Revenge against Jennifer. A relationship with the father I'd never known. A connection to siblings who'd grown up with a life that should have been mine. I want my family back, I sigh. The words hung in the motel room air like a confession I hadn't meant to make. Emma stared at me, tears still tracking down her cheeks, while Marcus looked like someone had just handed him everything he'd lost 28 years ago. Your family, Emma repeated slowly. You mean, us? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, *, this is Michael. Emma told me everything before she left. I'm driving to the motel now. Don't let anyone leave until I get there, *. Michael's coming, I announced, showing the message to the room. Jennifer stood up abruptly, panic flashing across her face. I can't face him too. Emma's reaction was hard enough, but Michael, he's going to look at me like I'm a monster. You are a monster, Emma said flatly. The question is whether you're going to be a monster who runs away to Argentina or a monster who stays and faces what she did. Emma, Marcus started. No, Dad. I'm done pretending this is complicated. Mom systematically poisoned a pregnant woman for 4 months. She documented it in a journal like she was proud of it. She intercepted letters from David's mother asking for help. She let you think Sarah hated you while Sarah was literally begging you to be part of David's life. Emma's voice gained strength with each accusation. And then she married you and had Michael and me while keeping David's existence a secret. Jennifer flinched with each point, but didn't deny any of it. I thought I was protecting our family. By building it on attempted murder. Emma laughed bitterly. Mom, do you understand that David could have died? That his mother did die from what you did to her. The arsenic levels weren't meant to be fatal. But they were. I interrupted, pulling out my phone to show her the medical records I'd photographed. Look at this report from 2018. Mom's kidney function at 45%. Liver damage consistent with chronic heavy metal exposure. Early onset dementia that the doctors directly linked to arsenic poisoning from decades earlier. Jennifer stared at the screen, her face growing paler with each medical detail. I didn't know the effects would be permanent. I thought once I stopped dosing her vitamins. You thought wrong, Marcus said quietly. Sarah died because of what you did to her in 1995. You killed her, Jennifer. It just took 20 years. The sound of gravel crunching outside announced Michael's arrival. Through the thin motel window, I could see a red pickup truck parking next to Emma's Honda. My 17-year-old half-brother was about to walk into the same devastating conversation his sister had just endured. I need to call Detective Hayes, Marcus said, reaching for his phone. This has gone too far. Michael deserves to hear the truth from us, not discover it when his mother gets arrested at Logan Airport trying to board a flight to Buenos Aires. Wait, I said, surprising myself. Give me 5 minutes with Michael first. Let me tell him who I am before you destroy his understanding of who his mother is. Emma looked at me with something approaching respect. Why do you care about protecting him? About protecting any of us? Mom ruined your entire life. I thought about 17-year-old Michael posting proud photos with both his parents after his soccer championship. About Emma's excited wedding planning posts, her obvious love for the family she thought she knew. About Marcus sitting alone by that lake, carrying 28 years of guilt for a crime he didn't commit. Because, I said, hearing my mother's voice in my own words, destroying people doesn't undo the destruction they caused. It just creates more broken families. Jennifer looked at me with tears streaming down her face. After everything I took from you, you're trying to save my children from the worst of this. I'm trying to save my siblings, I corrected. There's a difference. The knock on the door came before anyone could respond, not Michael's uncertain tap, but the sharp, authoritative rap of someone in uniform. Through the window, I could see a Westfield police cruiser parked behind Michael's truck. Mrs. Donnelly, a voice called from outside. This is Officer Martinez with Westfield PD. We need to speak with you about a matter concerning Sarah Chen. Jennifer's face went white. How did they? Dr. Hernandez, I realized. She must have contacted them when the DNA results came back linking me to an unsolved poisoning case. Marcus moved toward the door, but Jennifer grabbed his arm. Please, she whispered. Don't let them arrest me in front of Michael. He's still in his truck, he doesn't have to see this part. Through the window, I could see Michael sitting in his pickup, staring at the police car with obvious confusion. He'd driven here expecting a family meeting and instead found what looked like a crime scene. Emma wiped her eyes and looked at her mother with an expression I couldn't quite read. You want to protect Michael from seeing you get arrested, but you didn't think about protecting David from getting poison in the womb. I know I don't deserve. You're right. You don't. Emma opened the motel room door before anyone could stop her. Officer Martinez. I'm Emma Donnelly, Jennifer's daughter. Whatever you need to discuss with my mother, we're ready to cooperate fully. The next 5 minutes passed in a blur of badges, Miranda rights, and the metallic click of handcuffs. Jennifer Walsh Donnelly was officially under arrest for the attempted murder of Sarah Chen and her unborn child, conspiracy to commit poisoning, and interstate crimes involving toxic substances. As Officer Martinez led Jennifer toward the police cruiser, Michael finally got out of his truck. I watched my 17-year-old half-brother's face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror as he realized his mother was being arrested. Dad? Michael called across the parking lot, his voice cracking like the teenager he still was. Dad, what's happening? Marcus looked at Emma, then at me, then at his son standing next to a police car with no understanding of how his world had just ended. Son, Marcus called back, his voice steady despite everything, there's someone you need to meet. The interrogation room at Westfield Police Station smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. Detective Hayes, older now, grayer, but still sharp-eyed, sat across from me with Jennifer's journal spread between us like evidence of a life gone wrong. 28 years, he said, shaking his head as he flipped through the handwritten pages. I always knew something was off about that case. Your mother was terrified, but not of Marcus. She kept looking over his shoulder, like she was afraid of someone else entirely. I studied the man who'd investigated my mother's poisoning before I could even walk. Why didn't you push harder? The hospital had toxicology reports showing deliberate arsenic exposure. Because Sarah refused to cooperate. Every time we got close to building a case, she'd clam up, change her story, or threaten to recant her statement entirely. Hayes pulled out a faded photograph, my mother at 24, pale and thin, holding what must have been me as a newborn. She was protecting someone. I thought it was Marcus, maybe because she still loved him. Turns out she was protecting Jennifer's future children. The revelation hit me like cold water. What do you mean? Your mother figured it out, David. Not immediately, but by the time you were 6 months old, she'd connected the dots. Jennifer Walsh had access to the house, knew about her prenatal vitamin routine, and had professional training with pest control chemicals. Hayes tapped the photograph with one weathered finger. Sarah came to see me in March of 1996. Said she had proof Jennifer was the poisoner, but she wouldn't turn it in. Why not? Because Jennifer was 3 months pregnant with Emma. The room seemed to tilt sideways. My mother had known Jennifer was carrying my half-sister, had known she could destroy Jennifer's life and take away Emma's chance at having a mother, and had chosen silence instead. Sarah told me she couldn't be responsible for another child growing up damaged by adult choices, Hayes continued. Said she'd rather disappear than put an innocent baby through what you'd experienced. So that was why we'd moved so many times, why Mom had been so paranoid about anyone finding us, why she changed our names and paid for everything in cash. She hadn't been running from Marcus, she'd been protecting Emma and Michael from learning their mother was an attempted murderer. Your mother was a remarkable woman, Hayes said quietly. She spent her whole life making sure Jennifer's children got to have the normal childhood that was stolen from you. Through the interrogation room's one-way glass, I could see Jennifer in the adjacent room, still in handcuffs, crying as she gave her statement to Officer Martinez. In 3 hours, she confessed to everything, the systematic poisoning, the intercepted letters, the journal documentation, even keeping the arsenic vial as what she called a reminder of how far love could push someone. Love. She still called it love. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, * Michael's taking this really hard. He keeps asking if we're going to prison too for being related to her. Can you come to the house when you're done with police? Dad's trying to explain everything but Michael won't stop crying, * 17 years old and crying because his mother was a would-be killer. I remembered being 17, remembered the kidney dialysis appointments and learning disability assessments that had defined my teenage years. Michael was getting his trauma all at once instead of spread across a lifetime, but I wasn't sure which was worse. Detective Hayes leaned back in his chair. So what now, son? You've got justice for Sarah, Jennifer's going to prison for a long time, and you've got a father and siblings who want you in their lives. That's more than most people get. But something was nagging at me, something about Jennifer's confession that didn't quite fit. She'd been too forthcoming, too detailed, almost eager to claim responsibility for every aspect of the poisoning. People facing life sentences usually minimize their crimes, not embellish them. Detective Hayes, I said slowly, when Jennifer confessed to keeping the arsenic vial all these years, where exactly did she say it was hidden? He consulted his notes. Master bedroom closet, inside a shoebox marked Emma's baby shoes. Said she looked at it every year on your birthday, March 15th, as a reminder of her greatest mistake. March 15th. My birthday. But according to Jennifer's journal entries I'd photographed, she referred to the poisoning as her greatest achievement, the thing that finally got Marcus's attention and brought them together. People didn't usually keep evidence of their greatest mistakes as sentimental reminders. They kept trophies of their greatest victories. Detective Hayes, I said, something clicking into place in my mind, I need to see that vial. He frowned. It's evidence now, son. Chain of custody. Please. Something about Jennifer's story isn't adding up. I pulled out my phone and showed him the journal photos I'd taken. Look at this entry from February 28, 1995, final dose administered. S. Showing optimal symptoms for premature labor within 72 hours. M. Will have no choice but to step up as father figure. Victory is mine. Hayes studied the screen. Victory, not mistake. Exactly. Jennifer called it her greatest victory in 1995, but today she's calling it her greatest mistake. People don't keep trophies of their mistakes hidden in sentimental places for 28 years. I scrolled to another entry. And here, March 18th, 3 days after I was born, plan exceeded expectations. Baby survived but sufficiently damaged. M. Will need my help with medical expenses and care coordination. Perfect outcome. Jesus Christ, Hayes muttered. She was celebrating. 20 minutes later, we were standing in the evidence room staring at a small glass vial containing maybe half an ounce of white crystalline powder. The label, written in Jennifer's careful handwriting, read, March 15, 1995, the day everything changed. But it wasn't the label that made my blood run cold. It was what Detective Hayes discovered when he held the vial up to the light. David, this isn't arsenic. What do you mean it's not arsenic? Arsenic compounds don't look like this. This is too white, too crystalline. And see these separation lines in the powder? He pointed to faint horizontal streaks visible through the glass. This has been sitting undisturbed for decades, but arsenic doesn't stratify like this when it settles. Hayes called in Maria Santos, the forensic specialist, who took one look at the vial and shook her head. This is sodium chloride with some kind of pharmaceutical additive. Basic salt compound, probably used as a preservative or stabilizer. Definitely not arsenic. The room went quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. If the vial didn't contain arsenic, then what had Jennifer been keeping as her trophy for 28 years? Run a full-spectrum analysis, Hayes ordered Santos. I want to know exactly what's in there and where it came from. While we waited for the lab results, I called Marcus. Where are you right now? At home with Emma and Michael. Why? Did something happen with Jennifer's questioning? Maybe. I need you to check something in your master bedroom closet. Look for a shoebox marked Emma's baby shoes and tell me what's actually inside it. Muffled sounds came through the phone, footsteps on stairs, a closet door opening, boxes being moved around. Then silence. Marcus? There is no shoebox marked Emma's baby shoes, he said slowly. David, Emma's baby shoes are in a memory box in the attic with all her other keepsakes. They always have been. The pieces were rearranging themselves in my mind, forming a picture I didn't want to see. What about a small glass vial? Anything that looks like it could contain chemical residue? Nothing like that. But... Marcus paused. There's something weird here. A prescription bottle from 2019 with Jennifer's name on it, but the label's been scratched off. It's empty now, but there's white residue inside. 2019, 4 years ago. The same year my mother's dementia had accelerated rapidly, the same year her kidney function had dropped to critical levels, the same year she'd started having seizures that the doctors couldn't explain. Marcus, I said, my voice barely steady, I think Jennifer didn't stop poisoning people in 1995. The prescription bottle sat on Detective Hayes' desk like a loaded weapon waiting to go off. Marcus had driven it to the station himself, his hands shaking as he placed it in the evidence bag. Risperidone, Maria Santos read from her preliminary analysis. Antipsychotic medication prescribed to Jennifer Walsh Donnelly on September 14, 2019. But the residue inside isn't risperidone. What is it? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would destroy what little remained of my understanding of Jennifer's crimes. Arsenic trioxide. Medical grade. The kind used in controlled doses for certain cancer treatments, but in higher concentrations. Santos looked up from her report. This would cause the exact neurological symptoms your mother experienced during her final years. Detective Hayes was already pulling up Jennifer's prescription records on his computer. September 2019 through March 2020. 6 months of risperidone prescribed for anxiety related to family stress. But according to her pharmacy records, she only picked up the first prescription. She was using the empty bottles, I realized. Getting the arsenic from somewhere else and storing it in legitimate prescription containers. If anyone found them, they'd just look like old medication. Marcus collapsed into one of the plastic chairs outside the evidence room. Jennifer was still poisoning Sarah in 2020. 25 years later. The timeline was horrific in its precision. My mother's medical record showed a sharp decline starting in late 2019, exactly when Jennifer had begun refilling those prescription bottles. The seizures, the accelerated dementia, the kidney failure that had killed her by 2022. It hadn't been delayed effects from the pregnancy poisoning. Jennifer had been murdering my mother slowly for 6 years. But how? Marcus asked. Sarah lived 800 miles away in Vermont. Jennifer hadn't seen her since 1995. Santos pulled up a shipping manifest on her tablet. Palmer Medical Supply, Boston. Industrial Chemical Distributor. They show regular shipments to a Jennifer Walsh at a P.O. box in Manchester, New Hampshire, exactly halfway between here and your mother's address in Rutland. The methodical nature of it made my skin crawl. Jennifer had been making monthly drives to New Hampshire, picking up medical-grade arsenic, and somehow getting it to my mother for 6 years. This wasn't a crime of passion or a desperate attempt to steal a boyfriend. This was systematic, long-term murder. David, Detective Hayes said quietly, we need to know how Jennifer was administering the poison. Did your mother have any regular medical treatments? Prescription deliveries? Food services? I thought back to Mom's final years, trying to remember any changes in her routine around 2019. She'd been living in a small apartment complex for seniors, mostly independent but with some assistance services. There was a meal delivery program she started using. Fresh ingredients delivered twice a week so she could still cook for herself. What company? I don't remember the name, but... I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old photos until I found one from my last visit in December 2021. Mom in her kitchen, smiling despite the obvious toll the disease was taking, with a box of fresh vegetables on her counter. Green Valley Organics. The boxes always had a little packet of sea salt included with the vegetables. Santos and Hayes exchanged a look that told me they'd found Jennifer's delivery method. Salt is the perfect carrier for arsenic compounds, Santos explained. Tasteless, dissolves completely, and something a person would use in small amounts regularly over time. If Jennifer could contaminate the salt packets, she could poison my mother without ever setting foot in Vermont, I finished. The phone on Hayes' desk rang, cutting through the horrible revelation. He answered with a curt, Hayes, then listened for 30 seconds before his face went pale. They're bringing Jennifer back up from holding, he announced after hanging up. She wants to make an additional statement. Says there are more details about the Sarah Chin case that she needs to confess. More details. After confessing to 4 months of pregnancy poisoning and now facing evidence of 6 years of murder by mail, Jennifer Walsh Donnelly apparently had more crimes to admit. Detective Hayes, I said as we walked toward the interrogation room, I want to hear this confession myself. Face to face. Son, that's not protocol. Protocol didn't protect my mother for 27 years. I want to look Jennifer in the eye when she explains why killing my mother once wasn't enough for her. 20 minutes later, I sat across from the woman who had stolen my entire life, watching her dab at tears that might have been real or might have been calculated for sympathy. Even now, even caught with overwhelming evidence, Jennifer was playing the role of the remorseful mother who'd made terrible mistakes. I never meant for it to go on so long, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. After you were born, after Sarah moved away, I thought it was over. I thought I could build a normal life with Marcus and forget what I'd done. But you couldn't forget, I said. No. Because every time Emma smiled, every time Michael achieved something, I knew there was another child out there who should have been sharing those moments with us. You were Marcus's firstborn son, and I'd I damaged you so badly that you could never be part of our family. The twisted logic of it was almost impressive. Jennifer had convinced herself that continuing to poison my mother was somehow merciful, a way of ensuring I'd never discover the family I'd been kept from. So you decided to finish what you started, Detective Hayes said. Jennifer nodded, fresh tears starting. Sarah was getting sicker anyway from the original exposure. I told myself I was just speeding up the inevitable. Making sure she didn't suffer for decades. By contaminating her food for 6 years. The salt packets were so easy to replace. Green Valley Organics never secured their warehouse properly. I'd drive up once a month, swap out a few salt packets with treated ones, and leave. Sarah never suspected anything because the arsenic levels were so low, and her doctors attributed everything to delayed effects from the pregnancy poisoning. I stared at Jennifer, trying to understand how a person could speak so casually about methodically murdering someone over the course of 6 years. What made you stop in 2020? For the first time since confessing, Jennifer looked genuinely surprised. Stop. David, I didn't stop. The words hit the interrogation room like a bomb. Detective Hayes leaned forward. What do you mean you didn't stop? I mean Sarah died in August 2022, and I delivered a contaminated salt packet to Green Valley's warehouse in July 2022. I was planning to continue until... Jennifer's voice trailed off as she saw our expressions. Until what? I demanded. Until I found out she was dead. And then I realized you'd probably start looking into her medical history, maybe investigating the original poisoning case. So I switched targets. The room went dead silent except for the buzzing of fluorescent lights overhead. Detective Hayes's pen had stopped moving entirely. Jennifer, he said slowly, what other targets? She looked directly at me with something that might have been maternal pride. I've been treating your coffee for 8 months, David. The same arsenic compound, the same delivery method. Every Tuesday when you get your usual order from Sunrise Cafe on Elm Street. The cafe where I've been going twice a week since starting my investigation into Jennifer's crimes. The cafe that was exactly 2 blocks from her office. The cafe where I've been slowly poisoning myself with contaminated coffee while hunting for the woman who was poisoning me. The medical technician drew my blood with practiced efficiency while Detective Hayes paced behind us like a caged animal. 8 months of twice-weekly coffee from Sunrise Cafe. 8 months of unknowingly consuming the same arsenic compound that had killed my mother and nearly killed me in the womb. Results in 20 minutes, the tech announced, labeling the vials with my name and case number. Jennifer sat in the corner of the medical bay, still handcuffed, watching the proceedings with what looked like scientific curiosity. Even now, even caught poisoning 3 generations of my family, she seemed fascinated by the methodology of her own crimes. The beauty of arsenic, she said conversationally, is how it mimics other conditions. Your recent fatigue, the hand tremors, that kidney function test that came back slightly abnormal last month, I bet your doctors attributed it all to stress from investigating your mother's death. She was right. Dr. Patel had suggested anxiety medication for my symptoms just 2 weeks ago. I'd been slowly dying from the same poison that killed my mother, and the medical system had labeled it grief. Why? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. You'd already killed my mother. Why continue with me? Jennifer tilted her head like she was considering a mildly interesting puzzle. Because you were getting too close to the truth. As long as you thought Marcus was the poisoner, my family was safe. But when you started looking at hospital employment records, pest control training histories, prescription databases. She shrugged. You were going to figure it out eventually. So you decided to poison me into stopping. I decided to poison you into dying. Her voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. The same way I poisoned your mother into dying. Slowly, carefully, in a way that looked like natural complications from your existing health issues. Detective Hayes stopped pacing and stared at Jennifer with undisguised revulsion. You spent 8 months committing premeditated murder in slow motion. I spent 8 months protecting Emma and Michael from learning their mother was a killer. Everything I've ever done has been to preserve their happiness. Jennifer looked directly at me. If you died quietly from kidney failure in a few more months, my children could have lived their entire lives believing I was a good mother. The blood test results arrived faster than promised, arsenic levels at 847 micrograms per liter, nearly triple the threshold for acute poisoning. 8 months of contaminated coffee had brought me within weeks of the same organ failure that had killed my mother. We need to start chelation therapy immediately, the medical technician announced, already preparing in 4-line. Another month of exposure at these levels and the damage would have been irreversible. Irreversible. The word that had defined my entire life was almost applicable again, 28 years later, administered by the same woman through the same poison. But this time, I'd caught it in time. As the chelating agents flowed into my bloodstream, binding to Jennifer's arsenic and preparing to flush it from my system, Detective Hayes placed the final evidence bag on the medical bay's rolling table, a small salt packet labeled, Gourmet Sea Salt, compliments of Green Valley Organics. Inside was enough arsenic trioxide to kill 3 people. We found 47 of these in Jennifer's car, Hayes explained. All prepared for distribution. She wasn't just poisoning you, David. She prepared enough contaminated salt to take out half the Green Valley customer base if necessary. The scope of Jennifer's preparation was breathtaking. 47 potential murders, carefully portioned and ready for deployment, all to keep her family from learning she was exactly the kind of person who would prepare 47 potential murders. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, *, Dad told us about the coffee shop. Michael and I are driving to the hospital now. Are you going to be okay, *? Was I going to be okay? Medically, yes, the doctors had caught Jennifer's latest poisoning attempt in time to reverse the damage. Emotionally, I was about to meet my half-siblings properly for the first time while being treated for nearly dying from their mother's 3rd attempt to murder me. But for the first time in 28 years, I knew the complete truth about my birth, my childhood, my mother's death, and my own near-death. The 15 doctors who had attended my delivery hadn't been treating complications, they'd been treating attempted murder. The kidney disease, learning disabilities, and developmental delays that had shaped my entire life hadn't been random medical misfortune, they'd been the calculated result of 4 months of systematic poisoning. Most importantly, I now had a father who'd spent 28 years carrying guilt for crimes he didn't commit, and siblings who wanted me in their lives despite the horror of how we'd all discovered each other. Jennifer Walsh Donnelly, Detective Hayes announced formally, you're under arrest for the first-degree murder of Sarah Chen, 3 counts of attempted murder of David Chen, conspiracy to commit mass poisoning, and 47 counts of preparing toxic substances with intent to distribute. As they led Jennifer away in handcuffs, she looked back at me one final time. The original 15 doctors were wrong, you know, she called out. You weren't born fighting. You were born dying. I made sure of that. But she was wrong too. I'd been born surviving. And 28 years later, despite her best efforts to finish what she'd started, I was still surviving. My birth had been attended by 15 doctors because one woman's obsession had turned love into poison and family into a crime scene. But my life, the life those 15 doctors had fought to save, would be attended by the father and siblings I'd finally found, and the justice that had finally found her. The monitor next to my hospital bed beeped steadily as the chelation therapy worked to undo Jennifer's final attempt at murder. Each beep was a heartbeat she tried to stop, a future she tried to steal, a family reunion she tried to prevent. For the first time in 28 years, I was exactly where I belonged, alive, surrounded by family, and finally free from the poison that had defined my entire life.